Despite their reputation as a financially privileged generation, millions of baby boomers are slipping through significant cracks in the U.S. retirement system. Insurify reports a new source of financial strain on retirees' budgets is homeowners insurance premiums, a topic we've covered here on this show. They've skyrocketed by 20% between 2021 and 2023. In fact, the average Florida premium costs more than one-third of the average retirement income. Despite this, Florida attracted 11% of retirees who moved across state lines in 2023, according to a study by the moving services marketplace Hire a Helper. Between 2024 and 2030, 30.4 million Americans will turn 65. More than two-thirds of that final baby boomer cohort will be financially challenged in retirement. That according to the Alliance for Lifetime Income. Rising home insurance compounds other soaring costs, like surging car insurance premiums, which increased by 15% in the first half of 2024. Grocery price hikes up 11% in 2022 and 5% in 2023, and hospital care costs up by 7% year over year as of July. These increases are especially difficult for the one-third of senior citizens who reported not having enough money to live comfortably in retirement in a Gallup 2023 survey. Insurify's data science team analyzed the rising cost of essentials, including home insurance, in every state to find out how inflation is affecting retirees this year. The average annual retirement income, including Social Security in the U.S., with pensions and assets and earnings, is $31,390, according to the latest U.S. Census Bureau data. It's estimated American retirees spend 8% of their income on average on home insurance premiums alone. Coastal states are popular in retirement, but they often have serious climate challenges and risks that will drive up home insurance premiums. Hurricane-prone Florida's $11,163 average home insurance cost equals about 34% of the average retirement income in that state. Louisiana retirees face the second highest home insurance cost in the U.S. at about $6,500 annually, and that represents 24% of their average retirement income. Gloria Garcia Cisneros, a certified financial planner and wealth advisor with Lord Murray, encourages financially strained retirees to use their current assets to increase their income, from renting out a room to liquidating unused vehicles or collectibles. Low-income retirees may also need to reduce their living expenses. She said, when you're making so little, it's really hard. One option would be downsizing their home, or there are reverse mortgages. A reverse mortgage, she explains, will buy back your house and give you a stream of income for a certain amount of time. But at the end of it, the lender keeps the house, said Cisneros. In conclusion, while it is encouraging to see financial professionals such as Cisneros point out the reverse mortgage could be an option for cash-constrained senior homeowners, I have to correct 3 points. One is that the lender doesn't buy back your house when you get a reverse mortgage. Second, it does not create income. It's loan proceeds. And third, the bank doesn't keep the home at the end of it. So with that said, there are many challenges facing seniors, and I personally believe they're only going to worsen over time with the increasing cost of insurance and the general cost of living at large. That could be, of course, an opportunity for the reverse mortgage to help bridge the gap. When you encounter a homeowner who may be planning on bequesting or leaving their home to their children or heirs, you may want to refer to the points that were made in a recent Lifehacker column. They note that most homeowners do plan to leave the home to their heirs or children, and that sounds very noble. And while losing a close relative is painful, inheriting a house means you can get the home ownership ladder at a low cost, at least theoretically. But when our mother passed away, they noted, for example, my brother and I inherited our childhood home. And since my brother didn't own a home at the time, we arranged for him to take the property, where he's lived happily for years. But inheriting a house isn't just a free house. There is a lot of cost potentially associated with the property, depending on many factors. You need to perform due diligence to ensure that inheriting the property isn't going to be more of a financial millstone around your neck than a boon. The most obvious thing to check is whether the home still has a mortgage. Even though the person who took out the mortgage is no longer with us, the mortgage still has to be paid one way or another. And if you inherit the property, you also inherit the mortgage. And that gets more complicated with a reverse mortgage because there is usually a tighter deadline for you to either pay back the loan or sell the house. And there are some restrictions on how low an offer you can accept. My brother and I had to pay back a small amount of a reverse mortgage our mother had taken out on the house shortly before our death. The next thing you have to account for is the tax burden. Now, even if there's no mortgage due, you don't get to live in the house for free. If you plan to keep it, you should immediately investigate the estate taxes. Both the IRS and your state will tax the fair market value of the estate, including the home's value, if it exceeds a certain threshold. And the state of Maryland will also hit you with an inheritance tax. Then there's property taxes, which you'll be responsible for, and they vary widely by state. Now, it's based on the property value assessment conducted by your local government, and they're collected quarterly. And once you know that tax burden that you're taking on, you can look into whether or not there are any liens on the property. Liens are placed against a property when there are claims for unpaid debts, such as unpaid contractor work, which could result in a mechanical lien. Next, dig into the home's permit history, especially if renovation work was done. You want to make sure that all the work was properly permitted and that pulled permits were closed within a proper inspection. And lastly, aside from keeping the home from falling down around you, you also need to account for the cost of utilities. If it's a big old drafty house, it's going to be a bear to heat in the winter and a challenge to cool in the summer. And your utility bills will reflect that. And this week, it's time to bring you our monthly installment of Reverse Market Insights Market Minute with John McCue, where we can see what the latest trends and HECM data can show us about the past, present, and future. John, take it away.
Thanks, Shannon, for having me back again. Really appreciate it as always. So, last month we spoke about May's numbers in detail. So this month we're going to start with June and speak really more in depth regarding what happened in June. However, we do have some July data, some high-level, July data. So we will kind of sprinkle in some of that as well today. As far as case numbers, this is where we always like to look and start is case number assignments, because this really is the future indicator what we can expect for the industry. So in June, case numbers dipped. It was the third decline in a row by 8.5% to 2,940 case numbers. However, here's where some of the July data comes in. We do actually have July case numbers as well. And so they rose by over 15% to over 3,400 applications. So that's really great to see. New equity takeout for June dropped nearly 9% to 8.9. Purchase lost 2.9%. And then we get into refinances. And this is one of those categories we've kind of really been watching all year. Just because it's been really interesting to see, kind of the higher refinance case numbers, all year long. Now in May, we did have a dip there. However, in June, we started the ascent again. We grew by 2.9%. And in July, we grew yet again by almost 19%. So, that's just kind of showing us, where we're at from an interest rate perspective, I think. So even though we're mainly looking at June data for this month's segment, I do just want to point out again here the rise in July's case number assignments. We already know that July had an 8% bump in endorsement volume, and now we can see this bump in case numbers as well. So given the pending interest rate cuts by the Fed and the ongoing decline in current rates, I wouldn't be surprised to continue to see an increase in case numbers for the next couple of months. I mean, let's basically put it this way, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they decline, wouldn't be surprised if they declined below 3,000. That would be I don't see us getting below that. So I think, we're going to be in that 3,000 plus going into the end of the year would be my guess. But, it is an election year. Anything is possible. So, they could prove me wrong. We will see. As far as the, looking at regional trends, overall endorsements dropped in June by over 14% to 2,105 loans. All 10 of the regions were down in June. However, the Pacific Hawaii held up the best and also is the largest region. It only lost 2.6%. Northwest Alaska slipped 7.1%, and then the Great Plains, which is the smallest region, it shrank the most of all the regions by 29.6%. Looking at the different channels, retail dropped 8.8%. Wholesale definitely had the biggest drop here in June by 23%. So, kind of looking at where we lost the most volume happened to be in the wholesale channel. As far as the top 10 lenders, 4 of them showed growth, which unfortunately means that 6 of them didn't. As far as the 4 that did grow, high tech jumped 173.7% to 52 loans. Guild gained 19.1% to 56 loans. And then FAR, they took back the number 1 spot for the month, rising 2.6% to 603 loans. And then, finally, South River, they added 2.3% at 88 loans. So as far as next month, we'll look at July in a lot greater detail, but we already know that endorsements rose, and with case numbers showing some promise, we may have some hope for the second half of the year. However, there's still 4 months left in 2024, and lots of things can still happen, especially around rates. So stay tuned next month as we discuss July in greater detail and see how Q3 is faring.
And that concludes this week's episode of HECMWorld Weekly. We do have an audio edition of this podcast, which you can listen to and subscribe to on Apple Music, Spotify, and on Podbean as well. Thank you so much, and be sure to return next week for more reverse mortgage news that you'll only find here at HECMWorld. Have a great week.